from the New York Times. The FBI is using polygraphs to test officials' loyalty. Some senior officials who have taken the test have been asked whether they said anything negative about FBI Director Kash Patel. We're in some kind of cold civil war, or whatever you want to call it. There exists currently two distinct factions fighting for control of our government. I don't know how else to put it. With whatever's going with Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, and the Epstein stuff, to the fact that it's not just the FBI, but I asked Secretary Noem, who said in the DHS, they're doing the same thing. They are trying to weed out individuals they feel are betraying this country or working against it. When you have numerous stories that our federal agencies are doing polygraphs for loyalty tests, okay, that shows there is distinct separations of loyalties. So who are these people? I mean, we know what Kash has said about Comey being perpetrating the largest criminal conspiracy against this country. So that the argument is there is a large amount of people in government, top to bottom, who are disloyal to the democratic process that we had in electing Donald Trump, and we have to weed them out. So we are in some kind of cold administrative civil war. I don't know what you want to call it.
Well, I mean, I can't blame the Trump administration after what they went through in Trump 1.0. You almost can't be too paranoid after like everything that they went through. I mean, with James Comey and everything that was literally happening from the inside that was planned. I mean, the whole thing, even when he was like, oh, they're spying on my campaign and nobody believed him. And it's like the whole fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me thing. I think he legitimately probably feels like he can't be too paranoid right now. And everyone who's attached to him and loyal to him, I imagine, might feel the same.
I don't think we're just coming to understand how much the deep state, the bureaucratic state, is ossified and believes that they're in control of the government. I've heard two stories that were hair-raising to me. One was a friend of mine, a scientist named Paul Alexander at HHS. He was at a State Department, this Trump 1.0. He's a Trinidadian guy, and he was at a State Department party, and they thought he was part of their whole contingency. And they pulled him aside and they said, we run this government. This guy at the head, he's here for 4 years. We are in charge. We determine what goes on here. That is disgusting to me, that they are not serving the will of the people. That is anathema to the basic principles here. Then I talked to another guy. I was flying home from D.C. a couple months ago. He'd been in the DOJ, I think it was during the Bush administration. He said, oh, yeah, it was happening then, too. And we would just hire our own people alongside of the bureaucracy that was there in order to get stuff done. And HHS can't really do that because it's so complicated and all the research organizations. But this has been happening for a long time. Look, say the Jacobins thought that they were sort of developing freedom and shaking free of oligarchy. They just took it's Louis XIV bureaucracy and ran it themselves, but it still was a bureaucratic state, and that's the problem right now.
Well, they basically we were like, you know, all that authoritarianism. Can we hyper concentrate it into a speed run guillotine session? But then, you know,
that makes perfect sense though, because they're not taking problem with authoritarianism as a procedure when they shriek about fascism. They're complaining that you don't agree with their underlying philosophy of egalitarianism. They are fine with amassing power if they think they're doing it on behalf of equality. And so this is why they can always say, well, we're actually the real Democrats even though we're taking non-democratic action, because we presume literally everyone is a blank slate. We're all the same underneath.
Social ills are always done in the name of good. Always. Whether it's Mao or Lenin or you name it, Hitler, always in the name of good. Always. That's how bad is done in society on the social level.
But I mean, you can tell the left's reaction to Trump 2.0 is so much different than 1.0, because 1.0, they would like harp on about principles and this, that, and the other. 2.0, they're just like, this is so evil. And then they just launch a bunch of like BS court cases to try and stifle and gum up the system versus, like throw back to 1.0 and they were using heavy mechanism. They're like, yeah, it's all about principles and like Trump isn't principled. He doesn't stand. This time around, they're just like, he's so evil. Like they're clearly feel defeated, and that's all they can do is just be like, oh, he's so evil. What do we do? And they're just trying to go up the system, like I said. So,
man, it's like there's always something in it. Trump wins. We've got this, the ICE raids are happening. There's good stuff happening, but there's got to be some weird gum in the works. Some weird thing. Maybe the reality. I when I was interviewing Sebastian Gorka, he said the deep state is still here. It's there, and I said, "Have we won?" And he said, "No."
But even if you sack them, this is what the conversation should have been slightly before. Like, even if Trump roots out all of these people, even if he throws like some of them in prison for spying on his campaign or covering up the Epstein files or whatever, you've still got thousands of state bureaucrats that you are going to put out of a job. They cannot do anything else. They've never made anything else in their lives. They live and breathe this ideology. What do you think? They're going to go quietly into this good night? No, they're going to form some sort of like parallel system that's going to constantly try and a well-funded parallel system that's going to constantly try and undermine his elected mandate at every turn. And so there's two things I want to say on this. First of all, I don't know how effective polygraphs will be because pretty much all of our opponents are total psychos, and so they're not really amenable to this sort of thing. Second of all, did you see the photos that came out today from the State Department?
Which ones?
They've sacked a load of people, and they've been putting up posters saying that if you're still left behind, remember, your mission is to fight fascism. Not to, again, serve the American people. No, it's to create an ideological permanent government that defends against people noticing differences between cultures.
Yep. Where can I find that?
I'll send it to Serge. I got it bookmarked.
That's a good point about the polygraphs, though. Like the worst liars are actually probably the ones that would pass them. I mean, the polygraphs are not even admissible in court, are they, Drew? No.
I'm just thinking your asylum is granted. You're quoting American poets now. Good. I've never seen a Brit do that.
Hey, I'm a fan of Wendell Berry, so I like the phrase strip mining. That's fantastic. I think asylum may well be necessary eventually, considering the only thing that keeping my country's hope alive is actually the American State Department coming over and reminding us that we invented things like the liberty to speak freely in the first place, because we have been persecuting our population and calling them far right and locking people up for praying outside abortion clinics. Meanwhile, we're just letting jihadists roam free in the streets. And the only thing that's stopping the government even going full force on that is the State Department going, guys, remember, you are still in NATO. Like, we can clip your wings at any time.
Yeah, we saw Amy Coney Barrett in her and over and over again, she appeals to hundreds of years of English law in her writings, and it's like, I think Americans at this point might have a better grasp on the English history than the English.
Look at this. Colleagues, if you remain, resist fascism. Remember the oath you swore to uphold. We have a death cult in our government.
Wow.
And they are actively
identification.
They are actively trying to subvert the will of the American voter.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Biden won, and Republicans grumbled and got mad, and many of them claimed the election was stolen. Then, during Biden's administration, they sought to imprison Trump, his lawyers. The right has never responded in kind to the kind of force used by the left. Not on the streets, not in government, not even when they have power now. And that's a terrifying prospect.
What's really terrifying is I think I'm Trump derangement syndrome. I'm a clinical psychologist, so I have to say that obviously this is not, I understand it's not in the DSM, but I secretly think it should be.
It's well characterized. It's well characterized.
Yeah, I mean, like it's so diluted, and then again, the projective identification, for anyone that doesn't know, is where you have what's going on with you, but you pretend or you believe even that you see it in other people. And so I think what is so terrifying about it is that I think that there's such a huge proportion of the country that doesn't, just simply disagree with Trump, but that like literally thinks he's an authoritarian and a fascist. And I've said to some of these people, I've tried to have rational conversations. I'm like, well, if he was an authoritarian, why during COVID would he have insisted on giving all of the decisions to each individual states? That would have been a perfect opportunity, right, for him to do a mass power grab. I try, but I never can get through. And I've talked to really intelligent people about this who ultimately shrug their shoulders and they say, I don't know, Chloe, I just think he's an authoritarian fascist. And I just can't get anywhere with it.
People just self-diagnose when they say shit like that. They say, you're a narcissist. That's it. Narcissists trigger other narcissists.
Well, we were talking a great deal about this morning, the mass formation psychosis that is taking over this country and your country. And I don't know if there's a functional solution to dealing with millions of people who live in, let's just do this for the sake of argument. They believe the world is flat. I mean that figuratively.
Yeah.
There is a majority that we reasonably discern the earth is round. The average person who does assumes it to be true based on the majority of society's views on this, the scientific studies you can read, but they tend to be rational about it. Like you can talk to a regular person and say, fair point, I never checked, but I think it probably makes sense based on the horizon and the things I've read. The flat earth people are like, I saw a bunch of videos online. We think the earth is flat and that there's a giant ice wall, and these things make no sense. They're made up things on the internet. Turn that into politics.
Yeah.
How do you deal with millions of people voting? Imagine if people were voting to tip the earth. They're like, we're going to tip the earth over. And it's just like, well, what are you talking about? You can't do that. But this is the world they live in. What do we do with federal law enforcement that think the earth is flat?
This is what the founding fathers were so concerned about, right? That's why they limited it originally to landowners, and then that's why they came up with the idea of public education. They were really concerned with who should be a participant in a democratic process. And we decided, after Andrew Jackson, that as much democracy as possible was the answer. And I think most of us value that. But education, Tim, is a key, critical ingredient in that if you're don't have an educated public, it's going to be a free-for-all. Although you have an educated public, it's not going so well over there either. I'm not sure that's the entire answer.
We don't. Well, what happens when you replace the public with a completely different population from halfway around the world who are not all that intelligent and often marry their cousins and vote along ethnic and religious lines? Well, you get London, Leicester, Birmingham, Bradford, etc. I think that's also partially a problem over here because whether illegal or legal, you have a hell of a lot of people that just rely on government handouts from the productive, entrepreneurially spirited American public, and that just means the Democrats can just buy off their votes and have them as a clientele class.
But Connor, I know you're having problems in London, but have you ever just considered the upside that you've got curry and falafel?
Well, it turns out that actually the biggest curry producer in the UK is Wetherspoon's Pubs. So
Really?
I don't think that the British are in a deep and yearning desire for authentic Indian street food mixed by hand or foot. I think that we have the recipe and that we don't need to import 1 million Indians in 4 years, which
I don't know.
actually
Curry's
happened.
awesome.
It's not great.
I love it.
I would rather have civilization. That would be.
Oh, I'm not talking about mixing with hand or foot. I'm saying going to a civilized restaurant to sit down for a nice,
Even then,
coconut curry or something.
Feet's what gives it a little funk. That's what you want. That's what you want.
Well, though, you're raising an interesting point about the religion issue and the culture issue, because as you said as well, Drew, like with the founding fathers and what they were thinking about who should be voting. And one of the things that they were very clear about is that we would only survive as a republic with freedom if we actually had religion, right? Like they actually
Christianity specifically.
Yeah, I don't know if they specified. I wish I did. I've been reading about this more lately.
There were no Muslim founding fathers.
Right. And so I think though it's become almost like a taboo to discuss, but the Christian religion does, for example, when it comes to the concept of justice, that the Judeo-Christian, really, I mean, it's in both the Old Testament, that when you look at justice, when you look at court systems, according to a Judeo-Christian system, you may not favor or disfavor someone because they are rich or because they are poor. And men and women in the New Testament were uniquely placed on an equal level when it comes to the way that they should be treated. And that is a foundation, again, when we think about our democracy and about justice here versus, quote, social justice, or as you alluded to, bringing in a culture where actually the status, the sex, the, standing of a person does matter in the way that justice is adjudicated to that person. Or Sharia law, for example, has a totally different approach to justice.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.